Hey all, Pete here. I'm out here in my garage just getting a couple things finished up. I'm about done and ready to go for the upcoming trapping season. It's the end of August and I've got to wait about another month till October before it's going to be worth going and setting anything. But I adjust my camera here a little bit. I really only have one more video about trapping that I can do before we're actually out in the field, so I wanted to shoot it today. I have a few more calling videos to do, and most of those will probably be here at home, and then maybe one out in the field to show you some terrain for calling locations. But today's video is my last one on water trapping, and it's just a short video on muskrat floats and mink boxes. And I just shoot it here in my garage because this is where I make them and this is where I keep them. But this is one of my muskrat floats. Trap goes here, trap goes here. I've got a little bit of styrofoam on the bottom of it, not a lot. You can see it's pretty thin because this will float by itself, but as the wood gets waterlogged over time, sometimes it helps to have a little styrofoam on the bottom. You can't really see it very well, but I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but there are some screws in there. It's hard to see it with that indoor-outdoor carpet. But those screws, I have 4 screws on each side so that I can kind of fit my long spring, my #1 long spring on there. Let me grab one real quick and show you. I can't set this one because I haven't repaired it yet. It doesn't stay set, but anyway. That's how they sit on there, just like that, except it would be set. And the spring over on this side keeps the rat from climbing up that side. They're gonna climb up right here. I like to put carpet on these floats because it gives them something to hold on to as they climb up. Those screws are not so close that trap can't just fall out once it goes off, once a rat steps in. Okay, and so floats, I like 2 trap floats. Some guys make bigger ones, but I like these little 2 trap floats. Trap goes on each side, and then I put some bait here. Sometimes I'll put a nail here and just stick a carrot on there. Sometimes I'll pile fresh watercress up on this middle part, apples, turnips, whatever. And then I just wire around one of these edges with some of my wire down to a rock in the water, and I wire my trap rings directly to the float as well. So the rat steps on the float, jumps up on the float to get the bait, hits the trap, dives to the water, drowns. Okay, my float's sitting out there. If there's no traps on it, I go out. You know, I don't have to dig around for my traps. They're wired right to the end of the chain's wired right to the float. Reach down the water, pull up what I got. Okay, I just buy. Actually, I don't even buy wood for these. I just find scrap wood and make them. You shouldn't have to spend money to make a muskrat float, except for the screws, maybe. These are, well, one side was a 1x6 and the other side was 2 2x4s hooked together, and I think this is just like 1/2 x 2 or 1x2, 1/2 x 2 birch for the cross sections. You can wire you can wire from the float up to a tree branch too, or to, you know, something else in the creek, to a stake if you want. You just want to make sure your float's out in deep water. I'll shoot a video this year when I'm trapping about where I put floats, so you can see them at work in the field. Like I mentioned in one of my other videos, my floats, I don't have a lot of luck with them in creeks. I just don't. I do the best with floats in ponds with a lot of cattails, or like sloughs, kind of swampy spots, marshes. But I don't trap a lot of those areas. But when I do have a spot like that, that's where I like to put a float. So I know a lot of guys use them in the rivers. I don't trap the river because I don't have a boat to trap the river. So I'm more of a creek and pond trapper. And floats, like I said, they do well in ponds. But along the creeks in southern Idaho where I trap, I've had really no success with floats. I don't know that I've ever caught a rat in a float in one of the creeks I trap. Now, if there's a pond off of like a drainage pond off of a creek with lots of cattails and stuff, then yeah, I catch rats in there on floats. You know, but like out in the creek, I've never really had any success with those. So that's my floats, okay? Easy to make, take you virtually no time. I just use Gorilla Glue to put the styrofoam on the bottom. And then I take a saw and cut most of the styrofoam off. I just want a really thin level of styrofoam because you don't want these to sit too high. It's okay if they sit a little low in the water. All right, you want the rat to see the bait. That's what you're after. Okay, you want them to see this bait up in the middle. So if this part of the float sits a little under the water, that's just fine. Okay. All right. Here's one of my mink boxes. They're about I think I make them 18 inches long, 16 inches long. I don't know, however long that is. I guess I could measure it. It doesn't really matter, honestly. 16. Okay, so I make them 16 inches long. I just use plywood, and you see those slots on each side? That's so that a 120 conibear can slide into the opening of this. All right. The back, some guys make them with wire. I just drill a bunch of holes, random holes in the back to help the airflow and the scent come out. All I do for mink is I'll take a muskrat leg or some fish, throw it in the back, okay? Set my 120 conibear, slide it in, and then I wire my 120 conibear. I wire the chain to the back of the trap. I'll like go through these holes with some wire and wire it to the box. But then I'll wire the box to something else. Or if I can't wire the box to something, then I'll just wire my conibear to something else, because you will have raccoons come along and stick their head in there, and a 120 isn't always going to dispatch a raccoon real quick, and they may fight a little bit, and if you don't have it wired off, you may end up losing your trap and the animal, and the raccoon will die, but you won't be able to find him. It's not every time, you know, but I'm just saying that a 120 is not guaranteed to dispatch a big old boar raccoon instantly, okay? The other thing that could conceivably happen has never happened to me, but it could. If it's happened to you, comment and tell me, because I want to know, because I'm legit curious about this. But if I'm throwing fish and muskrat in the back of this mink box and setting it in places where there are mink, well, there could also be otter around. And I'm wondering, you know, has anyone ever had an otter stick their head in a mink box and get grabbed by a 120? If they have, I'd like to know how that went. Leave me comments, because otter are beasts, man. They are so strong. And I promise you, if you don't have that 120 wired off to something sturdy with sturdy wire, and an otter sticks their head in there, I'd almost be willing to bet you any amount that they're going to be gone with that trap. They'll get that trap off of them probably. They're crazy. They can tear. I've seen them tear stuff up that it's unbelievable to me how strong those things are. So I'd be curious if that's ever happened to anybody. Let me know. But my point is, you know, is I either wire my 120 to the box and then I wire my box to something, or I wire my 120 to something, you know, stable and strong with strong wire, because I'm looking for a mink to stick their to crawl into this to go after the bait, but other animals on the creek could do that. And I've had plenty of times where coons have stuck their head in one of these. And so I'm glad it was wired off. So again, you know, the measurements on these 16 inches long. Yeah, I make them, the opening is about 7.5 by 5.5. That's the inside of the opening. You don't need to stress out about it too much. These are 6s, I think. What are these? No, these are 8s. These are 1x8s. So if you buy 1x8s and make a square with them, your opening should be big enough. But make sure you check with a 120 before you nail it together to make sure you made the opening correctly. And then you can just take a saw or whatever and just saw down each side of those before you nail it together so you have your grooves. And I like to make those grooves about 4 or 5 inches back so that I can get that conibear in there a little ways so it's not right at the edge. So the mink's got to get in there and commit to it a little bit. And again, I did a video on mink and muskrat trapping, and these are good along creeks or under bridges and things like that, alongside culverts. But honestly, I'm a much bigger fan of natural cubbies, you know, for mink, the naturally occurring cubbies that are already there as part of nature, or if not, then digging one myself before I like using mink boxes. I use these as kind of a last resort. The other thing that these work really well for is if you have a landowner who wants you to get rid of the skunks. So you just set these out on land all over the place with some muskrat or fish or something in the back. And the cool thing about when I do that with these boxes, those 120s dispatch that skunk before he sprays. So I've never caught a skunk in one of these and had him spray. They've always been dead with no spray. So if you got to get rid of some skunks, or you're going to go after skunks, or you want to become a skunk trapper, which God bless you, I don't, but I do it once in a while for people. But this is the way you go, man. I'm telling you, they don't spray. Those 120s snap their neck, it's over, and you don't have to deal with the smell. But I would caution you to make sure, if you're going to do that for skunks, make sure you're doing it during the trapping season, even though like in Idaho, skunks are year round. In a lot of places they are, but there are other fur bearers that aren't year round, right? So you don't want to set one of these for skunks and then have, you know, like a mink or a pine marten or something crawl into it. So just be aware of that. You can't discriminate what's going to crawl in that box. They're also good for removing feral cats. I've caught more than a few feral cats in these too. So anyway, make sure that you do stake it down. You either stake the box down or stake the conibear down so that if something bigger sticks its head in there, you won't lose the trap. And the good thing about these for skunk removal is they're pretty small. So dogs, you know, you set that conibear back a ways in there. A big old dog comes along, sticks his head in there. He might get his nose snapped, but he's not going to get hurt by the conibear. Okay? So those are my mink boxes and my muskrat floats that I make. I have 6 mink boxes and about 8 muskrat floats. Some years I don't even use any of them. Some years I use all of them. Just kind of depends the territory I'm trapping. A lot of the places I trap I repeat, you know, over the years, and I already know where my sets are going to go, and I have good natural cubbies for mink and stuff, so I don't worry too much about it. But every once in a while I'll mix it up a little bit, or I'll get a new area that I've got to hit. And like this fall, I've got a new territory for coyotes, a new ranch, and there's a really nice creek that goes through there, and I like having muskrat meat for some bait. So I don't really feel like going setting muskrat traps out in November when they're not as easy to catch. I mean, they're easy to catch, but they're not as mobile. But a couple floats with some bait on them, a couple mink boxes maybe, you know, that's easy. I don't have to do much work to do that, and it might grab me a couple rats or a few mink. You know, mink for the glands and rats for for the meat, and it's not any extra work. So those are the places I like to use these too, is if I'm trapping coyotes or something somewhere and there's some water. I don't really feel like getting in the water and making a bunch of sets, but I can throw a float out, or I can throw a mink box out somewhere. All right, so with that, remember, God is great, guns are good, freedom is precious. This is probably my last trapping video until I start getting out in the field here in a little over a month. I will do a few more calling videos. Thanks to all my subscribers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.